Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is my privilege to welcome you to the Genesis Center for Spiritual Living. So please stand and sing with us our morning song. Genesis is a community dedicated to love, inspiring harmony, and creating connections to empower spiritual growth. And we love that you're here to share that with us this morning. My name is Christina S. Young, and I'm a spiritual practitioner here at Genesis, and it's my honor to be your host this morning for our service. We also have a host online, so if you're watching on Facebook, you can make a comment and introduce yourself. If this is your first time that you are watching Genesis online, make a comment, let us know how you found us, and we're going to have an opportunity a little later in the service for you to be introduced, and also if you're here in the room, if you're comfortable, to stand and introduce yourself for our first-time guests. We're currently still have also your online host this morning, the person that will respond to you on Facebook is Cal Boyle, so thanks for doing that, Cal. We are currently searching for a new spiritual leader for our community. So for our ministerial search, we have formed a prayer to align our consciousness with that which we wish to attract to us as a spiritual leader. So if you will read with me now our new minister's Sacred Covenant Easy Prayer.
I recognize there is one life. This life is God's life. This life is my life now. I am one with this life and all its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for Genesis Center for Spiritual Living, as a revelation of God as love. As Ernest Holmes says, I dwell in the house of love. Love attends me in my home of the soul. I shall never leave this home of the spirit. I shall abide in this home forevermore. Feeling into this love, I experience my new minister with full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing these powerful truths about myself. I am powerfully expressing divine love, inspiring all to do the same. I am blessing and honoring all paths of spirituality, awakening deeper truths and spiritual growth. I am a place where God shows up, expressing divine love, allowing truth and joy to heal all. I am embracing, teaching, and exploring spiritual truths from diverse spiritual teachings. I am teaching and embodying prosperity, trusting that God is the source of my good. I now accept this highest expression of spirit as myself, and I know this expression is now being revealed as the new minister that serves the highest and greatest good for Genesis. I am grateful, we are grateful, and so it is.
We have some announcements this morning, and all the details for our announcements can be found on our website, genesiscsl.org. We have applications for the Board of Directors available now. They're at our volunteer desk. Also, there's a link on our website where you can download the application and also turn it back in. So please submit your application if you're interested in serving on our board to Gideon by May 7th. We have an update. We have a Care Circle meeting after service today, and it's potluck, and we are inviting our entire community to stay and join with us for that, because before we do the Care Circle meeting, we're going to have an opportunity to meet up with two different ministers and give them a chance to get to know us and us a chance to get to know them. So for you to be here would be a real gift this afternoon. I hope you can stay. Our Science of Mind textbook, we have an opportunity to read together the Science of Mind textbook in a year. So practitioner Karen Williams is following a guide and posting that regularly every day on Facebook. So you can find that on Karen's Facebook page at Karen L. Williams RCP or the Genesis family page. Every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, you can join Karen Williams and Cynthia Zink, two of our practitioners, for Intention Circle on Zoom. Join us to create more miracles in your life. A love offering is appreciated. So now we have an opportunity to meet and greet one another in the room. So if you'd like to stand and greet those around you. Good to meet you. We have so many people here this morning in the house. There's not enough time to greet everyone right now, so anyone you missed, I'd like to invite you to stick around after the service and enjoy our potluck and continue getting to say hello to everyone.
Hello. It's been a while.
So we're going to continue with our service, so I'd just like to invite you back to your seat.
I've been out here for 5 years. Yeah.
And while you're returning to your seats, I just want to check. Did everyone get a chance to grab a prayer card, an envelope this morning? If not, just raise your hand, and we'll have someone bring those around and hand those out to you. So just keep your hand up in the air until you have a prayer card.
Hey, I love your hair. Okay, can you guys do me in there?
So now we have an opportunity to introduce any first-time guests. And I understand we don't have anyone that's announced themselves online. Do we have anyone in the room that's a visiting Genesis for the first time that wouldn't mind standing and introducing yourself, letting us know how you found Genesis? Yes, please.
I'm Pam Kepford, and my friend, Reverend Eric Allison, and we are Amazing Grace groupies.
Thank you, Pam and Reverend Eric, for joining us this morning.
I'm Eric Jacobs. I'm not totally new. I was at the Burien, when you guys were in Burien before. I was there once or twice, but it's been a long time. And I'm here with Reverend Rose, my partner. And have you ever been to Genesis?
Never been to Genesis.
Oh, okay, so she is new too. So
But I've been
anyway, I'm very glad to be with you all.
So it's so glad to have you with us this morning.
Hi, I'm Rosanna DiBiase. Just moved here to the neighborhood, and was so thrilled to see the Center for Spiritual Living is closed. So I work for Delta Airlines. I'm in and out, but I'm glad to be here.
Oh, Roseanne, we're so glad you could stop by. Maybe we'll get to see you more often. That's very exciting. Do we have anyone else that would like to be brave and introduce themselves this morning? All right. I'd like to thank all of our volunteers that have showed up this morning and been of service. The space that we're in right now, we're only in it for a few hours at a time. So there's a setup process and there's a teardown process, and everything you see here, it's being run by volunteers. So I want to just give a shout out to our setup crew this morning. I want to thank Anna and Cal and Gideon and Andrew. I'm so glad you guys were here to do that for us. Thank you. And if anyone would like to stick around after the festivities this afternoon to help put things away, lots of what they say, many hands make for light work. So we'd really appreciate your help. I also want to give a special shout out to Jim Monson running our sound today, Michael Johns running our camera and on the screen, and Cal for being our online host, and practitioner Cynthia for being our greeter this morning. Let's give them a big round of applause. We're so grateful for our volunteers that show up every Sunday. We couldn't pull it together without you. So we currently have openings for setup, coffee and refreshments, and for teardown. So you can show up anytime and just help if you're available. If you just wake up early one Sunday morning and want to come in early and help, that's always really helpful. Also, if you want to sign up ahead of time, so we make sure that we don't get all the volunteers on one Sunday and nobody on another Sunday, there's an opportunity for sign up here at the front desk if you're a person that knows how your body works and knows your schedule and you have that luxury. We'd love to have you sign up ahead of time. So the next thing I'd like to do is invite our congregation to stand and sing with us our opening song.
I'll meet you there.
very important volunteer who is serving as our practitioner this morning. Please welcome Reverend Eric O'Dell.
Everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's so nice to have a lot of bodies in here. It's great. I'm very grateful everyone's here. This month our theme is life and afterlife, and I set that theme because, of course, it's been the month of Easter, and my experience in many years in Science of Mind that typically we focus on the story of Jesus and the Passion and ideas and concepts of life and afterlife as it is taught in traditional Christianity. And what I wanted to really do was look at other religions and other teachings about life and afterlife. So we've been looking at that all, I want to say semester, it's not been a semester, it's been 4 weeks, but all 4 weeks. And if you are curious about what other religions teach about life and afterlife, the services are available on our Facebook page. And as part of that, I know that my colleague and dear friend, Reverend Colette, has done a lot of reading on these topics, and I know that she needed to be included in this. That's why she's speaking here today. So this reading I'm going to give you is an excerpt from a book called Spiritual Unfoldment, Book 1. It's by a channeled entity named White Eagle. Sometimes you hear, oh, so-and-so is an old soul. But how has that soul become so noticeably wise and peaceful and radiant? By reason of the discipline of many physical lifetimes. Discipline produces growth, and the finest discipline is found in the common everyday tasks of this earthly life. You might say, but doesn't the soul have greater opportunities for development on the astral plane? To a certain degree it does, but remember, the limitations of time and space, the restrictions of physical life, don't exist on non-physical planes. To bear sorrow bravely, to meet success with a humble heart, to serve generously and share happiness with others is what produces an old soul. We can think of no better symbol of this earthly life than that of a seed planted in the dark soil that it may grow into the perfect flower. The perfect flower, the archetypical flower, was first created in the mind of God. And then the seed was planted in the earth to grow to its fullness. So it is with you, who are the seeds planted in physical form to grow toward the light until you blossom as mature souls in the full flower of your divinity, which was held in divine mind from the beginning. Eric, I'm going to give a prayer. If you could give me a little something. Let's all take a nice deep breath. And so I bless this truth that the divine is our reality, is our truth, is our beingness. And as the divine is a glorious, magnificent fountain of eternal light, so we too are containers and emanators of that perfect eternal light. And I bless us, however old or young we are as souls, knowing that we are perfectly where we are, exactly as we are, unfolding as we are. And I know that our future is bright, that we are deepening and growing individually and collectively, and we are learning through aspects of material life. All the things we like and all the things we don't like. All the things that are easy and all the things that are difficult. All the things that are pleasurable and all the things that are terribly painful. I know that there is some graceful, glorious, loving, healing power within us, and we can use it. And that is our gift from the Spirit. So I bless us this day. It's a perfect day. It's a perfect day to be here on this incredible blue and green marble, set in a deep velvet blanket with sparkling stars. Life is good. We are good. And all is well. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you, Reverend Eric. That was beautiful. And now I'd like to invite up our guest artist for this morning. We are so blessed and grateful to have in the house the Pete Kirkland.
Yeah.
You can clap your hands if you want to, right? Yeah. Keep on walking. Keep on believing. Keep on singing. Keep on dancing. Keep on walking. Keep on believing. Keep on singing. Keep on dancing. Be thankful for another day. Come on and keep on going. Keep on going. Smile your worries away. Don't wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow. You gotta keep on keeping on. Keep on walking. Keep on believing. Keep on singing. Keep on dancing. Keep on walking. Keep on believing. Keep on singing. Keep on dancing. Be thankful for another day. Be hopeful for tomorrow. Tomorrow. Smile your worries away. Don't wait until tomorrow. No, tomorrow. Be thankful for another day. Keep on singing and praising. Smile your worries away. Don't wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow. Keep on keeping on. You got to keep on keeping on. Yeah. In the morning. Oh, yeah. You got to keep on keeping on. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. You got to keep on keeping on. Yeah. You got to keep on keeping on. You got to keep on keeping on.
And thank you, Eric and Keith. Wow, rocking it. And now it is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker this morning, who is near and dear to my own heart. This is our amazing Reverend Colette Mercier. Colette is the co-founding minister of Eric Odell of Amazing Grace Spiritual Center, which she co-founded with Reverend Eric Odell in 2009. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago that Amazing Grace was born, and now here you guys are. So let's give a warm Genesis welcome to Reverend Colette.
I just first of all want to thank Eric Verlinde and Pete Kirkland for showing up today, so that I don't have to sing. If you were here last week, you know that there were no musicians except Eric Odell, so he sang on the third day for you. And I don't have to do that. So I'm delighted. And I'm grateful Eric is doing this series because we don't talk much about this in this teaching. And I have spent my whole life studying things like this. And so it's an opportunity to talk about what I care about, and I have a very specific reason, which I will eventually tell you about. I am offering a perspective. I'm not teaching. This isn't mathematics, this isn't gardening. I'm offering a perspective. So I'm not preaching, I'm not teaching. I'm just offering you something to think about. Because for me, it has changed how I think about my life here. So I'm going to answer the question, you know my talk title today is what dies, what lives? So I'm going to answer the question from this book, Journey of Souls. So the two books I'm going to be drawing from today are Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And he does something beyond past life regression. He actually takes people to the place we go between lifetimes. And I'm going to tell you more about that. I don't expect you to believe me. But I'm going to start with the very first quotation from his first book. This is on the subject of what dies and what lives. Oh my God, I'm not really dead, am I? I mean, my body is dead. I can see it below me. But I'm floating. I can look down and see my body lying flat in the hospital bed. Everyone around me thinks I'm dead, but I'm not. I want to shout, hey, I'm not really dead. This is so incredible. The nurses are pulling a sheet over my head. My friends are standing around me crying. I'm supposed to be dead, but I'm still alive. It's strange, because my body is absolutely dead, and I'm still moving around it from above. I'm alive. That is the answer to the question of what dies and what lives. So if you have a busy day and you need to get going, I've answered the question. You can leave. But I do have more to say. I'm going to just stop for a second and mention that I've known Cal Boyle and Eric Odell for 24 years, a third of my life. So it's so beautiful to be here with you today and to be with so many people that I know, so many people I don't know. So thank you for showing up and actually having to pull out more chairs. That's kind of exciting when you have to pull out more chairs. So now I'll go back to my topic at hand. So in our teaching, we have a statement called What We Believe, and it's our basic principles. It was written by Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, in 1927 for the first edition of Science of Mind magazine, and it appears in every edition up to this day, and that's almost 100 years. And the third statement is, we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. That's what we believe. But we don't investigate it very much. We stay away from it, and it kind of surprises me that we do. I think Ernest diverted attention from what could happen because he didn't want us to appear frou-frou. We have a statement, we are new thought, not new age. So in his first edition of the Science of Mind textbook, which came out in 1926, he talked about seances, he talked about beings walking through walls. There's all kinds of weird stuff in there. The second edition was published 12 years later in 1938, and none of that was in there. It was longer, but none of that was in there. And I think he realized that he He wanted to focus on the essence of our teaching and not be diverted by things that people were charging off all over the place. And the essence of our teaching is actually very simple. You could inscribe it on a coin the size of a dime and carry it around in your pocket. You don't have to carry the science of mind textbook with you everywhere you go, or the Bible. The teaching is this: God is all there is, consciousness is cause, and the soul is eternal. That's all you need to know. You can walk down the street and know everything you need to know, and just draw upon those three things. So he did choose to focus on living this life well. And I want to say, Ernest Holmes said he didn't invent anything. He studied all the religions of the world and deduced the simplicity that was in all of them. And that's actually called the eternal philosophy. It goes back to Plato, goes down through Plotinus, comes down through the Transcendentalists, through the Swedenborgians. There's a whole tradition. And he wanted to pull out the essence of it, which is what I just told you. It goes like this. And this is all you need to know.
It's right there on that
and Ernest said he didn't believe in reincarnation. He said, the universes are so big, why would we come here and do the same thing twice? I don't know if you've looked around. There's a lot of different things you can do on this planet. I think he simply did it to shut people up. I think it was a specious response. He just did it to shut people up. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it now. Because the focus is, and it's very useful, right here, right now, I have the power to change my life through the use of my consciousness in a proper way. And that's what he wanted to focus us on, and not speculation. But still, when we use the word science, and it's in our name, religious science, science of mind, you would think that we might do a little investigation into whatever information is available to us and look at it as systematically as we can. And so today I'm going to talk about three topics. The first is near-death experiences. The second is past life regressions. And the third is lives between lives. I'm not going to spend 1 minute on what religions teach. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, and that's not what's going to happen. So let me tell you about these two books that I just waved around. Dr. Michael Newton has hypnotized thousands of people, and he has trained therapists to hypnotize thousands more people. And all those people say the same thing about where we go, where our soul comes from, and where it returns. Now, for me, thousands of people saying the same thing when they're hypnotized is as close to science as we're going to get on this side of the veil. So I'm going to pay attention. And I encourage you to do so. How many people are familiar with these books? Is anybody familiar with the book? 2 people. Okay, I got a lot of people. The sales are going to jump this week. So he was a hypnotherapist in a medical environment. People asked him to do past life regressions. He said, no, it's not scientific. We can't validate it. I'm not going to do it. And then one day he was hypnotizing somebody who had a lot of pain in his side. And one of his techniques was to intensify the pain so that it would break or release something. So he intensified the pain, and all of a sudden, this guy's lying on a battlefield in France in World War I with a bayonet in his side. And he got hooked. So he started doing past life regressions. And that was all going along. And then one day he was regressing a woman whose issue was loneliness. She didn't have any friends and she was very lonely. And he said, let's go back to the root of that loss. That's one of the things you do in hypnotherapy, is go back to the root. And all of a sudden her face brightens and she starts crying and she said, there's my friends, there's my friends. They were her soul pod, and she was seeing them in this other reality. So he got hooked a second time, and he started going back to that place. Because you see, with past life regression, maybe you were Cleopatra way back, and a lot of people have been Cleopatra way back. And maybe you were a chimney sweep in 17th century England in another lifetime. What were you doing in between? There's almost no evidence of a soul jumping directly from one body into another body. So where were you? Nobody seemed to ask that question. And he was thrilled because he had found the answer and began exploring it. So as I said, he's written 2 books. He's got, I think I counted, 650 pages of stuff. So I can't tell you very much right now, but I really encourage you not to be daunted by the number, but to be curious enough to investigate. So, I'm going to talk about 3 things, but first I want to tell you why I'm talking about it, because when you know that there is a place your soul goes to, I'm going to talk about myself. When I know there's a place my soul is going to go to, and I'm going to look back on this lifetime, from that now moment, I'm going to look back on this now moment, it enables me to think more wisely about what I'm doing and the choices I'm making, than even thinking about my life from my deathbed. Because from my deathbed, I might say, you know, there's a practice, and it's a book called 5 Questions by Gay Hendrick. And in it, you imagine a friend is talking to you when you're in the process of dying and asks you your regrets. So you might do a bucket list. I didn't see the Taj Mahal. I didn't have the guts to do bungee jumping, you know, whatever. But that's not the perspective we're talking about. The perspective is, what soul evolution, what qualities of soul did I demonstrate in the time that I was here on the planet? So first I'm going to talk about near-death experiences for a moment. And I know you've all heard of them. And some of you may even have had one. I know a couple of people who have. Universally, people say once they've had a near-death experience, they no longer fear death, because it's such a marvelous experience. I'm not going to describe it anymore. I'm simply going to read you a representative account from somebody who was regressed, or who described it. I had a heart attack, and I found myself in a black void, and I knew that I had left my physical body behind. I knew that I was dying, and I thought, God, I did the best I knew how to do at the time. I did it. Please help me. Immediately, I was moved out of the blackness to a pale gray, and I just went on gliding and moving swiftly, and in front of me, in the distance, I could see a gray mist, and I was rushing toward it. It seemed that I couldn't get to it fast enough to satisfy me, and as I got closer to it, I could see through it. Beyond the mist, I could see people, and their forms were very much like what we see on Earth. The whole thing was permeated with the most gorgeous light, a living golden glow, a pale color, not like the harsh gold color that we know on Earth. As I approached more closely, I felt certain that I was going through that mist. It was just such a wonderful, joyous feeling. There are no words in human language to describe it. But it wasn't my time to go through the mist. Because instantly from the other side appeared my Uncle Charlie, who had died many years before. And he blocked my path, saying, "Go back. Your work on Earth has not been completed. Go back now." I didn't want to go back, but I had no choice. And immediately I was back in my body. I felt all that horrible pain in my chest. And I heard my little boy crying, "God, bring my mommy back to me." We have accounts of people who were pulled out toward the light and given the choice to come back, but that's not usually the case. Most people are told you have to come back. And of course, we haven't heard from the people who chose to go over it. That's why there's other things to study. And I have to say that my grandmother told me a story when she was young. She had scarlet fever. This was in the 1880s. And it was very serious. The fever was so bad, it comes to something they call the crisis. And either the fever's going to break or you're going to die. And all you can do is watch. And she went out of her body and sat on the door lintel and looked down on the whole scene for a while. And then came back into her body. So you can read 10 books, but if your grandmother tells you that, you believe her.
Yep.
So that's me on near-death experiences because I still have so much to talk about. So the second is past life regression. And there's a lot to be read about it, as you know. Personally, I believe it's possible. There's a lot of uncertainty. And in this one, I'm not going to read you something. I'm going to tell you a couple of my own personal experiences. So the first one is I did hypnotherapy. It was a very powerful process over a course of 2 years. And in that, I had a couple of near-death experiences that I wouldn't burden you with having to know about. But there was one, and it was just a vignette. And I was a knight, and I was here, and people were crowding around me, and they were going to do something pretty awful to me. And across from me was my squire, surrounded by people who were going to kill him immediately. And I felt such guilt and remorse because I was responsible for my squire. And all of a sudden, that's my son. It's my son Scott, he's alive. It was a total feeling, it was a vibrational feeling. I was just in this cloud of truth, recognizing my younger son Scott in this lifetime. And I was just so thrilled and relieved because he's alive. And that was in the context of understanding that there are many lives, and therefore, here he was. The second thing I want to tell you about, and this wasn't hypnosis, this was when I was in college, I had a boyfriend whose mother did past life massage therapy. Wow. In the mountains in the Santa Cruz.
Of course.
And I didn't stay with the boyfriend, but I stayed with the mother. God bless him. And so she would put on classical music. She would take places where there was pain. She would massage it, and things would come up, and you would be released. She had a woman come in walking with a cane. She released something, and the woman threw the cane away and just walked across the room. So a few years later, this was out in the Santa Cruz Mountains. A few years later, I was living in Manhattan, and she let me know she was coming to Washington, D.C., would I like a session? I said, of course. So we did a session. It went on for 2 hours. And in that, I relived every possible way of dying by deprivation of oxygen. So I went through hangings, I went through strangulations, I went through drownings, I went through stabbings, I went through death through smoke inhalations, being burned at the stake. For 2 hours, that's a long time. So I got back up on the train, go back, I was staying with a friend on West 86th Street, and there's ambulances and fire engines outside the building. And I see a stretcher being carried out with an older woman on it. I said, what happened? They said, she died of smoke inhalation from a fire in her apartment. I was like, thank you, God. I went in, I laid down, because that was just too much of a, an amen on the process. And the interesting thing is that when I was born, they were on the way to the hospital, and my mother couldn't go any farther. She said, let me out. She sat down on a curb, and she said, I'm not going any farther. I'll have the baby right here. Fortunately, my father and her mother talked her into getting back into the car, because when they got to the hospital, the umbilical cord was around my neck 3 times. Wow. And the doctor had to go with forceps and turn me and turn me. I came out with a very pointy head, but it's fine now. That's not why I have this. And so that was like a marker on my life. It was a message on my life. Because I'm a shallow breather, you often will hear me suddenly take a deep breath. And I have trouble speaking, I have concerns about speaking publicly. So the in-breath and the out-breath, because if you're burned at the stake, you very much know why you were burned at the stake is by speaking the truth. And so it was a signature on my life. So that's my stories about past life regression. And again, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, just giving you information to think about. So now with lives between lives, and that's what I'm going to focus on here, I won't try to summarize, I'm just going to talk about 2 things. The first one is when we leave the body. And when we leave the body, we want to make sure I don't have the right book. When we leave the body, we very often want to say goodbye to people. And that's right, I'm not reading this story then. Look at me. So there's a story that's very representative. It isn't dramatic, but it's representative. So this man dies of a heart attack in his yard, and his wife is out there with the neighbors. And he wants to say goodbye. He knows he's being pulled to go over, but he wants to say goodbye. So he thinks, oh, his daughter Sarah was upstairs alone in the bedroom. Everyone had forgotten about her. So he goes up there, she's holding her mother's knitting needles. So he sends his energy into the knitting needles, which become warm, which makes her alert. And then he can jump in by the nape of the neck and tickle her chin, which is what he used to do every night when he was putting her to bed. So she starts laughing. So then the mother comes in to get ready to follow the ambulance, and her daughter says, Mommy, you don't have to go anywhere, Daddy's right here. And the mother's like, oh, I should pay more attention to her. So she sits down and puts her arm around her, and by that he's able to jump from Sarah into his wife Irene. And so they're the three of them, he's enveloping the two of them, and he says goodbye, and it's enough, and then he's whisked up over the fields and over the woods and into the mist, and it's okay because he had the satisfaction of knowing he had been able to say goodbye. Now, the second thing I'm going to talk about is meeting the Council of Elders. And I've read about the Council of Elders all my life. You can tell by looking in that first book that I showed you that I have been reading about this stuff for a really long time. Can you see how yellow the pages are? And the Council of Elders is a few wise beings where you go to reflect on your life. Now, when you first cross over, you may immediately go and join friends, your soul pod. You may, if you've had a very difficult life, you may have a period of recovery on your own. If you've lived a very unkind life toward other people, you may have a period of reflection, which could be pretty long. But at some point or other, you're going to go to your Council of Elders. And you're standing there with your spirit guide with you, who's been with you all through your life. And and you all look at your life, and like, huh. And the thing is, over there is no lying, there's no deception. It's only a fluid of thought. So everything can be known. So you're there with these folks looking at you, and you're all looking at the same thing. There's no excuses. So there was a guy, and he died. He went to a past lifetime, as he was being regressed, he went to a past lifetime in which he had he went to his scene in front of the Council of Elders. He didn't go to a past lifetime. And so he was looking at it with them, and he was like, you know, I employed a whole lot of people. It was during the Depression. I made sure I was able to employ lots of people. I gave to charity. I took good care of my family. He's putting together a really good story. And then it's like, and I was a really bad employer. I was angry. I stepped on people. And so he sort of, you can't hide it, right? So it's like, what do I do with this? And of course, everybody is seeing that. And so at some point, the head of the Council of Elders stops him. Emmanuel, we are not here to judge you, punish you, or to override your thoughts. We want you to look at yourself through our eyes, if you can. That means to forgive yourself. This is the most challenging aspect of your time with us, with your Council of Elders, because it is our desire that you accept yourself for who you are, with the same unconditional love that we have for you. We are here to support you in your work on earth. Toward that end, we will remind you of the bus incident. What bus incident? So they send a little thought into his mind. And he was walking along to work one day, and he saw a woman sitting at a bus stop crying, and he sat down and put his arm around her and comforted her until the bus came. This was a very unnatural thing for me to do. My God, is this what they're interested in? I was with this woman for only a few minutes before the bus came. I never even saw her again. It's so crazy. An entire lifetime of giving money to charity, and they're interested in this? I gave this woman no money. We only talked. This is a very important piece of information. There's two important things there, and I'll start with the second one first. It's what we do spontaneously without thought very often that demonstrates the true nature of our character. So he did all these things trying to be a good person, and it wasn't that those didn't count, but they reminded him of his essential goodness when he did something uncharacteristic and enveloped her in love. The second thing that I wanted to say has escaped me, so I will say it at some point. So since I have a couple more minutes, I'm going to say two other things. The first one is, I don't know about you, but I find this planet has a lot of unpleasant stuff. I find it really hard to live here. My heart is burdened. And waking up and trying to do good, go through life, be good, in the face of so much that I have no power or control over is very hard. And I think, gee, I hope I don't have to come back here again, which I'm sure many of us have thought. And he asks one woman in a hypnotic therapy session, well, why do people even come to Earth when it's this hard? And she said, that's why we come to Earth, is because it's hard. The quotation that Eric read talked about, yeah, it's all fun to be over there in the ethers, but there's certain things you can't do there. You see, our essential soul is pure and untouchable, but the whole universe is vibrational. So our soul field is vibrational. And there's the etheric body, there's the astral body, there's the core. And so things are carried forward from one lifetime to another in that to remind us we still need to work on them. And when you go through a difficult situation and triumph over it, you are vibrationally transformed. Your soul field is vibrationally transformed much more rapidly than by floating around over there having fun. And so, as she said, that's why those of us who choose to come here, we know it's hard, and that's why we come. So I invite you to think about that sometimes, because I will say to myself, why did I come here? And then I remember. And so the reason I'm telling you these stories is, again, you're in this now moment now, and something's happening and you make a decision one way or the other. But I look at, as I'm faced with situations that I'm in, I look at my life not from my deathbed. I look at it from standing with my council of elders, and all of us are looking at what I'm doing right now in this now moment. That will be my now moment then, and we will be looking at this one. And that's how I look at the choices that I make with my life. So I feel I owe it to anybody I can tell to give this thought, to investigate it. I'm not asking you to believe all this, but I think if you read these two books, if you find the patience to read it, you will find yourself opening to this reality, to this possibility, and asking, how can I live my life even better than I have been? From that point of view. And the important thing, I now remember, the other important thing about the quotation that I read you, where the elder says, we want you to forgive yourself. It is a message of compassion. Now, many of us, especially if you grew up in this culture, whether you were raised in a Christian church or not, you are very familiar with the idea of sin and punishment and salvation and heaven and hell. And yeah, it's true that what we do now matters, but it doesn't matter in that way, in that framework at all. It's totally for our own self-evolution, for our own evolution. And so I invite you really to think about how am I living my life, and how will I feel about how I'm living my life? Because we can all make excuses. How will I feel about how I'm living my life when I'm looking back upon it from that place of wisdom? So that's what I have to tell you today. And now I am going to flip a few pages and follow instructions. So I'm going to invite Pete up, and we have Eric on the keyboard, just to be ready. So you're not doing doodling yet, but I will tell you when I will do this when I want you to doodle, okay? But first I'm going to invite you to fill out a prayer card, because each of us can benefit from the power of prayer. Each of you has a yellow prayer card, and I invite you to take a moment and fill it out with a prayer request. It can be for something inspired by this service, by whatever else is on your heart right now. And if you're watching online, you can submit your prayer request through Genesis website, genesiscsl.org, genesiscsl.org, which you probably know that by now. And so now, Eric, I am going to take a moment to pray. So I invite you just to rest, to go within in the silence, in the I am. Our I am is our constant companion. It is our access to our soul. It is our access to the great I am. For God told Moses, my name is I am that I am. This is the doorway into our greater self. It is our doorway into the divine. And in this place, I invite you to allow yourself to feel love for yourself. Compassion for yourself. Oneness within yourself. Knowing that whatever conflicts there may be, whatever doubts, whatever desires, you are a whole being. Divine. For everything is made of the divine. There is only one, and so what else would it be but the divine taking form? And why would you speak ill of the divine? So open to the truth of your own goodness, your own power, and allow the joy of recognition to fill you. And give great thanks that this is the truth, that we are blessed with this truth. I call it good, I let it go, and so it is.
So it is.
Suddenly then without warning, love, always heavy on my mind. And when I look at you, and the world is all right with me, yes. And then one look at you, and I know it's gonna be someone else ahead of me now, always the world is alright with me. Yes, and then one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day.
Oh, thank you, Pete Kirkland. Give it up one more time. What a good day to be at Genesis. Let me just say thank you so much, Reverend Colette. That was
Yay, Reverend
so
Colette.
So we now have an opportunity to be the way that God shows up to help support Genesis in a financial way. So if you're on Facebook, please visit our website at genesiscsl.org, where you can find a donate button. You can also text a tithe to 206-800-7595. That information is also on our website. And you can also just take a minute now to write a check or give a cash donation, and we'll be picking those up in just a minute. So we'll give you just a moment to craft your Genesis support. Card and your gift, and hold it close and say our offering blessing together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am thankful. And now we're going to have Gideon come around and collect both your offering and your prayer card. You can put them right in the basket. And as Gideon comes around to collect that, I'd like to invite everyone to stand and sing with us our congregational song.
My source, God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings. God gives me everything I need. God is my source. God is my power. God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for
just in a space of gratitude and recognition that this is an absolute representation of how we are constantly and consistently supplied by the universe around us, always and in all ways. So it is with open hearts, minds, and hands that we receive these blessings, these gifts from that deep space of gratitude. We say thank you. And so it is. So thank you all for joining us, everyone, today. I'm wishing you a wonderful week filled with joy and blessing. Please stand once again and sing with us our closing song, I Release.
Where's the sign? Hey, go! I release
And I let go. I let the spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm
only you, God.
no more
Troubles,
no more strife.
with my faith,
I see the light. I am free in the spirit. Yes, I'm
only you, God.
I release and I let go. I let the spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm